All right, welcome back to another episode of Hacking with visionOS, the show where I hack on things and it isn't always pretty. Of course, actually, most of the time it's not pretty. So anyway, let's rewind to last time and where we got to. So last time we had this boring old stock UI, but we were really focused on trying to show a painting in immersive space. And of course, last time we were able to get gestures hooked up where we could move the painting around and we could actually push it back into the space to sort of create the effect of mounting it on the wall. So this week, our activity is going to be actually building out a lot of this 2D UI in the window here. So we're going to try and build a grid of different artwork items, and I want to actually be able to like tap on those individual pieces of artwork and render the artwork in RealityKit. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to actually create a model. So I've created this new artwork type, and it conforms to the identifiable and hashable protocol because I ran into some issues with that while I was trying to hook this up to a view. And part of having conformance to the identifiable protocol is the artwork needs to have an ID. So in this case, we're just going to use self. So it sort of generates the ID automatically by returning an instance of self. So if it's a unique object, then it's a unique ID. And then I'm going to give it a title, an asset name, and a price. And these are all strings. And so then I've also created this variable for mocks here that's going to just return an instance of some fake artwork objects for myself just to do some testing because I haven't hooked it up to anything yet. So each of these gets a title, and they each have an asset name, which is all the same asset name, but I'll change this later to a different asset. And then they're each getting a price. And so then the next thing that I needed to do is I needed to actually create a card to represent each of these artworks. So within here, I've created a new type called art card, and it's going to pass in an instance of my new artwork model. And then in the body, I'm going to handle all of the layout. So I put this behind a navigation link. I haven't quite figured out how this works yet, but I will figure that out. And then within a vertical stack, I've laid out some text for the artwork title, an image that references the artwork asset name, and that should go back and reference my oranges asset back in here, and then some more text for the actual price. So within the content view over here, I can actually hook all of this stuff up. So what I did is I grabbed my mocks variable from within the artwork type that then gives me a list of artwork mocks. And then I'm creating a separate art card for each of those. And so as you can see here within my content view, it's actually rendering all of these art cards. But there's a big problem. The problem, first of all, is I can't actually, I can click on these things, but I can't actually scroll them. And the other is, since I don't know how many of these art cards I'm going to display in here, I want to actually render it in a grid. So I think I'm going to do that next. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is get this moved over so it's showing into a grid. And so I can do that by using this super cool type called lazy vgrid. So I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff. In fact, first thing I'm going to do is comment that out so it doesn't show up anymore. And as you can see, this is super cool because we've got the preview pane over here for SwiftUI. So as soon as I comment out that toggle, it's actually going to disappear from the preview, which is awesome. This is totally going to expedite my productivity with all this stuff. And it looks like my formatting here is all messed up. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually putting this into a lazy vgrid, which takes a columns parameter, and I'm going to go get that parameter together now, where I can basically put together the specifications for each of the columns using these grid item types for grid item layout. Whoops, I did something wrong there. We're fixing it. Okay, I think we're all fixed now. And so then when this re-renders, it should show up in a grid. So I'm going to refresh it. And there we go. We've got all of these in a grid, and it's scrollable, And it looks pretty nice. I think I need to tweak some of these fonts and stuff too. So this is pretty awesome. Clean things up a little bit here in the UI. Cleaned up some of the labels and stuff so that things are a little bit more readable. You can still scroll in here. I did get rid of the split view for now. I can actually kind of get rid of some of this old code in here where we're doing showing the immersive space. But I think where we're at now is I've hooked up a navigation destination for my art card, because inside of my art card I've got a navigation link, and I want to be able to link on the navigation stack so that I can show a separate view in here when you tap on this item. So when I tap this now, because I get the actual artwork entity itself, so I put the artwork title into just a basic text view, and I'll build out a more formal view later, but it says detail view to go here with the title of the artwork. I can tap on this one and it shows a different title. So now that I'm doing that, I know I can show like some details about the artwork when you tap on it, but I also want to drop you into immersive space when you actually tap on the art card and do both those simultaneously. So that's what I'm going to figure out next. Okay, so I've refactored this a bit. So I pulled the navigation link out of my art card view into my actual for loop in the scroll view. And the thing that I want to be able to do is to not only navigate to a destination, show the initial art card for the default state, but then to actually like do an action when I tap on the art card also. So in this case, I found this simultaneous gesture method, so I can get an on-ended event on a tap gesture and then trigger show immersive space. So let's try that. So now if I come in here and I tap on one of these cards, it's going to trigger me right into immersive space while it takes me into the detail view. And so I can actually interact with it. So now let's see if I can get this so that it dynamically hooks up to the right painting when I trigger it. I had to do a little bit of refactoring to get it to work, but ultimately what I want to be able to do is when in fact I can probably get rid of this because I don't want to mess with the immersive space anymore, but what I want to be able to do is when I change the artwork after tapping on an item, I wanted that to be an observable object so that other places that are subscribing to updates on that type could get the message and handle it somehow. So in my art model, I created a published attribute on this artwork model so that ultimately then these things get passed around correctly. So in the content view, I've got a reference to the art model. So it changes the artwork here, which means that I can subscribe to updates to it in the immersive view because I have an observed object here in the art model. And so in order to do that, you can use this onReceive method. So anytime anything changes in the artwork, that this method will fire and then I can handle it. And so basically what I've done is I've refactored some of this so that initially when I build out my immersive view, I create my anchor, and then I call this new setup artwork method, which is also what I call when the artwork changes. And so, but then when the artwork changes, I remove the previous artwork from the anchor and then set it up again. So then now in the future, what I can do is from the artwork, and I need to hook this up still, grab the actual asset from that artwork so that I can change it out relative to the artwork that was changed. Hopefully that makes sense. It's just kind of complicated. Let me go grab some more assets and I'll wire this up and we'll see if it works. Okay, this is going to be pretty cool. We're going to be able to fire it all up here and get it all working. So I've added a few more assets in here. We've got some limes and hearts, Fruit Loops, eucalyptus and lemon, and a disco ball. These are probably kind of hard to see because it's a little small. And eventually these will get wired up, like I'll build something into the Shopify API to like pull these dynamically, but for now they're hard-coded, so that's good. And then we'll come in here to the mocks object, and as you can see, I've built out new mocks for each of these, each with their different asset names. And then in the immersive view, I swapped this out so the image now actually loads with the artwork asset name. So let's fire this up and give it a go. All right.
you can already see how much nicer this UI looks. And I can expand it out just like this. And I've got a little bit of repetition in here, but that's okay. And I can tap on my oranges just like I could before, and it's dropped the oranges into my immersive space in RealityKit with the detail view of the, which I'll build out later, that'll give us more information about the product. And so now when I go back and I want to swap it out to limes, I can just tap on limes and it loads the right artwork. Or if I want some Fruit Loops to put on my wall, I can load out the Fruit Loops. So this is pretty neat. Like, it feels like the core functionality of this app is like really coming together. So I think next time I'm going to build out the detail view and maybe see if I can clean up some of these interactions a little bit. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next week.